Hello and welcome to this video. I built a castle out of XPS foam for 28mm wargaming, and I made a couple of videos on how I did this. And in this one I'll be talking about how I built various details, such as the roof, ladders and doors. As shown in one of my previous videos, I built the entrance for the castle, but it needed a gate and some doors. I created the gate by cutting strips out of styrene sheet. I wanted to create these wooden doors that were reinforced with metal. I carved them out of thin XPS foam. To create the metal grid, I simply drew diagonal lines and carved the little diamonds in between with a sharp pencil. I primed the doors black and then I gave the inside some browns with the airbrush. Then I masked off some parts of the doors. I dry brushed over the blacks with some green and green-blue acrylic. I applied gold paint to the parts that I just masked. I did find the gold a bit too shiny eventually, so I painted it over with some greens that mimic like oxidated copper. The gold is still shining through, and to me it really looks great like this. Here are some shots of the inside of the doors. If you're into technical and especially mental challenges, I can suggest building some spiral stairs for your project. I speak from experience because after a lot of struggle with especially the correct height and correct rotation, I did manage to build a few for this project, but I scrapped them because they took up too much space inside and it wasn't an option to build like a separate tower with a staircase next to this tower, or to just put them loose next to the tower and pretend the rest was wrecked. So in the end I decided not to do spiral stairs and to build some ladders in the top floors instead. I made the supports of the ladders with large cocktail sticks. They had some squares on them to hold them by. Those I cut off and then I cleaned up the area with some sandpaper. I drilled small holes in them, and to create the steps I pushed toothpicks through those holes. The parts of the toothpicks that were sticking out I cut off with pliers. After it was finished I found the ladder to be a bit too long. It didn't go well with the scale, so I made two a bit smaller ladders and two plateaus. The floors are just made with foam, but I carved them to look like wood. I also racked the ladders. The leftover pieces of wood after racking the ladders I used to put under the ladders like some wood debris. And I also stuck some of it into the broken floors to make those look more realistic. After this I painted everything. And here you see the painted results. A Gothic building isn't complete without some gargoyles, so I decided to build a few of them. I started with the one that you see here in the picture. First I made a basic form in one layer. Then I added layers for the shoulders and claws and for the wings. And I drew all the details with a pencil. And finally I hit everything again with a little rock to give it that stone texture. First I put this gargoyle on top of the tower, but it was way too big to be up there. The tower narrows down from bottom till top, and I realized that the gargoyles had to follow this rhythm. So I put this big one down to the first floor, and I made a medium one and a smaller one to put on the other floors. Here's the medium-sized one that's made in the same way but 2 layers. Here you see the finished version of it. And again from another angle. And here's the small top one. This is made also with 2 layers. And the finished version. For each floor I made 3 the same ones. And here you can see them all happy together, enjoying the view. To finish the tower I needed to build a spire. Initially I had the idea to make it like a big flame bursting into the sky in a kind of Art Deco-ish stylized way. And on paper that looked great, but once I made a 3D foam model of it, it looked like crap. So I deleted that idea. I decided to build a more realistic spire. I roughly based the design on a spire of a castle out of one of my favorite movies, being Bram Stoker's Dracula by Coppola. This is the basic shape, the square is the tower and the octagonal shape the spire. I drew some details and cut out the arches. Before I could do this I had to cut up the shape, of course, else I couldn't cut it with my hot wire cutter. After this I reassembled everything. And I started to make some roof beams. I prolonged the arches a bit by building small pillars under them, but I didn't like it when it was all finished. The spire was too wide for the tower, so I decided to build a new one. Actually, eventually I built 4 new spires. I really fiddled on a lot with this part of the project. I even stacked 2 parts. The top one is another failed one that was too small. The bottom one was actually alright. It's split, by the way, because I didn't have thick enough material to make it out of one piece of foam. I didn't like the stacked look, it got too high, so I decided to just go on with the bottom one. That already looked a bit better. I added that extra element on top. I found the dome a bit too pointy and too high, so I changed that. I also carved details into that element that I added, and I made a base plate under the spire. And finally, I ruined parts of the spire by cutting out pieces, just like I did with the whole castle. Here's a piece that I cut out. And here's what it looks like from the backside. I already laid down some basic layers of paint with an airbrush, and now I'm detailing the roof with a hand brush. I paint individual roof tiles, and I vary in color and in the gradient. And after this I do some dry brushing. Here I'm applying some streaks with a lighter color. I'm painting in some darker colors as well. I take off a little bit with a Q-tip. And right after this you see me restoring the details in those tiles. I do this to keep contrast. We're approaching the end of this video. I've uploaded more videos on working on this project. If you like it, go check them out. For now, thanks for watching and bye bye.